Alright guys, welcome back again to the channel. So Super Eagles striker Taiwo Awoniyi is one of the first people to release a public statement, condemning what has been happening in the country. Of course, everyone knows that the country is passing through a very difficult time right now, at the hands of bandits, Fulani headsmen, Boko Haram, terrorist group, ISWAP and all of that. So this is definitely a trying time for the country. We've seen a couple of incidents, abduction of schoolgirls and schoolboys. Talk about the Kebbi State, 25 girls that were abducted, and then a few days later we saw the one that happened in Niger State, where they went into Catholic church and then, burned some part of it, the sculpture in it, made away with, I don't know the figure, but I'm hearing it's around 52 people. And then, recently again, we're hearing that Nasarawa is the last state that they raided school to kidnap people. So this is a very trying time for the country, and it needs people of position to come out and say something to kind of uplift the spirit of people, and also make people who are in positions to act, talk about the government and Tinubu and his co. But just to give you what Taiwo Awoniyi has said, he reacted to the recent one that happened in Kwara State, whereby a church was raided, a church that was actually in session, a church that was having a service, was attacked by this terrorist group. They were shooting gun in the air, and then everybody got scared and started taking hiding. These people walked into the church with their full chest and were stealing things, dipping their hands in the pockets of the people's purses, people's bags, just basically carrying anything that they wanted. And then at the end, they still kidnapped some people. And, we also heard that few people were killed, I think up to 3 or so. So it's a very terrible news. And Taiwo Awoniyi reacted to that one. He's probably from Kwara State, because this one really touched him, and he went on his Instagram to say the state of harmony is one of the most peaceful states in Nigeria, reflecting the peaceful coexistence among one another with different religions and beliefs. Peace shall reign. Kwara State stands for peace, and that's what we stand for. So that's the message from Taiwo Awoniyi. He didn't really want to say much about it, just basically just pleading for peace to reign and for coexistence, between the religions that are in the state. But at the end of the day, I think the best thing that we can do for the country is to pray, in our prayers, in our secret prayers, to remember the country, and also pray that the efforts of the security personnel of the government will work, and then this terrorist group can be disbanded and put in their place once and for all. But let me give you guys some of the updates right now. Of course, there are some good news. There is some good news, in the front of Ola Aina, who has returned back to Nottingham Forest training. So it's really some good news right now, because obviously we know that we are going to need him for the Nations Cup in December, and he is back to training. And for Victor Osimhen, there is some good news as well from the club president, the person of Dawson Uzbek. He came out to talk about Osimhen's muscle injury, and he said that it's going to take him just 2 weeks to recover, after everything that was done, the scan and all of that. Initially they said it was going to be a couple of weeks, maybe 3 to 5 weeks, but now they have reduced it to 2 weeks. So this is definitely a good news, and of course Osimhen is very, very important for us in the Nations Cup. So it's very good to see that the man is not going to stay out for a really long time. And then we'll just go further and talk about Coach Chelle right now and what NFF are planning to do. So apparently Coach Chelle is slated to meet with the NFF and have a discussion with them, and it's not about the contract, it's not about getting fired or retaining the job or anything like that. It's about how they can select the squad, how they can select the most efficient, the most appropriate, the most result driven squad for the AFCON 2025 coming up in December. So, I mean, with this news, it just tells us that NFF are trusting Coach Chelle into December, that is into the AFCON. So all the rumors about get fired or not get fired and all those pressures from ex-international stakeholders and all of that, it's not having any weight on NFF's ears, because they have now made the next move, which is to call Coach Chelle and discuss about the players that he's going to invite. So obviously they are trusting him with the job, throughout AFCON. And what the NFF are looking at right now is that they're trying to have a very serious review of the players, and basically just screen out the ones that they feel are too overrated to be in the squad. And one of the area that they keep complaining is the area of inviting players who are not good enough, in terms of these players not featuring for their club side, and then they get invited into the squad, and then they have to stay as in the bench or as a sub and not being used, and then later they go back and then they get invited again. So NFF are trying to put heads with Coach Chelle and see how they can get, number one, young fresh players to add into the squad. Number two, get the players who are consistently playing for their clubs, not just players who are on and off, players who have been consistently making appearances for their club and who are result driven, players who are getting results. These are the players that they want to sit down with Coach Chelle and talk about. So it's very possible that after the discussion and all of that, the squad that Coach Chelle will be unveiling for the AFCON 2025 is going to be filled with a lot of changes, or an ample amount of changes, in terms of the people that we are going to see. We might not see, I don't know, maybe half of the players that we used to see, because of this new angle or perspective that the NFF wants to, look at it from. So that's basically, what an official from the NFF has come out to confirm. In his word, he said, we can't continue selecting players who aren't getting regular club minutes. Super Eagles players must be playing consistently for their clubs. That's part of what, this NFF's unnamed official has come out to say. But I mean, at the end of the day, they should just get us a squad that is fit, that is consistent, that is young, and that is passionate about playing for the team. That's just what we care about. That's what Nigerians care about. But to move away from that, guys, Yakubu, the Yak, Ayegbeni, the legendary striker of the Super Eagles, of course, is one of the guys that has scored the most goals for our team. He has come out to reflect on what's happening with the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Of course, with the recent game and all the event that went on around it, and particularly with the issue of not being paid some salaries and wages, that resulted in the players going on strike. Yak feels that these players are too nice, and they're actually too soft. He said that during their days that NFF dare not, owe them salary for that amount of time, for that really long extended period, years of old salaries and bonuses. That when you have the likes of Olise, Kanu, JJ, there's no chance that the NFF would do them like that. That it's not even possible, because they respect them, they fear them too much to do something like that to them. But he said that it's sad to see that these players currently, they don't even have leaders, or they don't have that charisma to really, force NFF to give them their due rights. And as a result of that, they are having to put up with old salary for several years, up to 5 or 6 years. That's some of the things that he has come out to say. He said, I think these boys are nice guys, because you can't play 31 games for how many years without being paid, but you still play. When you have players like Olise, Kanu, and JJ Okocha, no chance of that happening. That's part of what he said. And then he also went quickly to react to, the situation with Osimhen being the only striker that really brings results for the Super Eagles. And then all the other guys, talk about Tolu, Akko. Now of course Akko has done really well in the last couple of games, but talk about all the other strikers, Boniface, Desas, and all these guys that have gotten call ups in recent times. Yakubu feels that it doesn't really make any sense to him why these strikers will be coming to camp and they are not fighting, they are not aggressive, they are not complaining, they are not angry that only Osimhen is being selected, to play the match. Like, he's the number one striker. Anytime they have a match, Osimhen is number one on the list. He feels that this is not healthy at all for the team. He feels that these guys, these other strikers are not. He feels that these other strikers don't even have the mentality, because he says that during their time, there was no way that he himself would come to play international game and sit on the bench and he's going to be happy. No, he's never happy whenever he sits on the bench. He's always trying to see how he can get into the first team, and put the likes of Agahowa, Martins, or any of the strikers in the bench so that he gets to play. And he says that that's the problem right now with this current team. Everybody's relaxed. These strikers that get called up, they are happy that, oh, they made the call up, or then they made the call up, and that's enough for them. They are satisfied. They are not even thinking of how can they perform, how can they compete, how can they try to be better than Osimhen. With all due respect, how can they try to see that they can outperform him and get the goals, get the important victories, get the important results, so that they can out Osimhen. Because obviously it's not a bad thing. He says that yes, Osimhen right now is one of the best strikers in the world, but you can't just be happy with that. As a striker who's playing in the team, you can't just be happy with sitting on the bench anytime you come to national team and you're not fighting to displace someone who's there. That's the mentality that he says they have, and he thinks that for Nigeria to become a better team, this mentality needs to change. These people need to change their mentality and start thinking about how to get in the starting shit, rather than just being happy that they are called into the national team to represent and then they sit on the bench at the end of the day.